I want you to imagine a world, perhaps in the not-so-distant future, when both the secular, liberal atheists and the conservative evangelicals are both terrified because they cannot reconcile the world they are seeing with the world as they thought it was, and the cognitive dissonance is just too much to bear. Now let's imagine a plausible path to get there. As of making this recording, it is December 2025. Let's say that in 2026, the stress on the Japanese government regarding concerns over their ability to service their debt, let's say that continues. Let's say they have to continue raising interest rates to attract enough buyers of their debt. And because of that, whereas historically investors might have chosen U.S. debt over Japanese debt, that trade starts to go the other way, because now the yields are higher in Japan. Because of that, there is less demand for U.S. debt, and the interest rates that the U.S. has to charge continue to climb, and the stress on the dollar continues to increase sharply. Fast forward to 2027. Things finally come to blows between the U.S. and its proxies and China as it relates to Taiwan. There are missiles, there are aircraft, there was gunfire, there was fighting. Knowing full well that it will not be able to recoup debt owed to it by an adversary, China sells its U.S. debt to buy gold at an even faster rate than before. Now it's 2028. China has again restricted the export of rare earth elements since they have little incentive to supply those to an adversary to use in missiles and drones and satellites that are being shot at them. A innocent bystander that is a casualty of this conflict is much of the U.S.'s heavy industry, automotive and electronics in particular. These industries suffer greatly as they lose access to key raw materials that cannot quickly be replaced with domestic sources. Because of this and the resulting drag on the economy, the Democrats oust the Republicans and win the trifecta of the presidency, the House, and the Senate in the 2028 elections. January 2029. A Democratic president is sworn in, who also controls the House and the Senate. Pulling away from conflict with China, our biggest adversary, is too much of a pill for many Americans or for Democrat donors to swallow. They don't know how to do it. But they do know how to promise things to the American people, and they raise every social program, every benefit, every welfare. They raise those sky high, because Trump may not have helped the economy in 2028, but Democrats, surely, they will help the people. Except, in this case, they can't, because finally the debt has gone too far. No one is buying our debt. Japan can't buy it. China won't buy it. The printing presses that print money are becoming exhausted. Hyperinflation has set in. The government benefits that are issued are as good as worthless by the time that they arrive. The U.S. refuses to default on its debt obligations and refuses to cut benefits. Nothing else can or will be done but to let the great melt-up continue, in which everybody has all the dollars, everybody gets all the dollars for free, but all the dollars don't get you anything. As the days get shorter, a very hard winter starts to come into focus. Through all the price inflation, the government decided to implement price controls on key essentials like natural gas for heating, so people could afford it. The only problem is, because you can't make any money with price controls, many utility suppliers stop. That means that many homes have no natural gas for heat. People freeze, pipes burst, property is destroyed, and a harsh spring dawns upon a bewildered and confused America. It is now 2030, and the cognitive dissonance lies heavy upon much of America. For the secular liberals, they have a hard time accepting that it was, at least in part, government spending and debt that led to the hyperinflation. But it is even harder to accept that at this point, nothing can be done. Salvaging the dollar means reducing spending, which means cutting programs. But not cutting programs means the hyperinflation and the tragedy continues. The conservative evangelicals are perhaps in a not too dissimilar spot, especially if they anticipated that God would take them in a rapture before anything approaching this level of calamity found them. They have a feeling that they shouldn't be here. Didn't God promise to take them away before this happened? Both camps feel forsaken. The liberals feel forsaken by the government, in whom they were true believers. And the conservatives, the evangelicals, feel forsaken by God, in whom they were true believers. Now, in this hypothetical situation, I've laid it on pretty thick, and I've been pretty pessimistic, but I don't think that I'm directionally wrong. Biden, through concerted effort, got us into a war in Ukraine. Trump, through concerted effort, is trying to get us into a war in Venezuela, and doesn't seem to have made much progress getting us out of the war in Ukraine. Neither Biden or Trump have been very successful in keeping us from drifting towards a war with China over Taiwan. On the economic front, Biden added a staggering amount of debt during COVID, and Trump has done relatively little to curtail that. All the efforts of Doge have been a relative drop in the bucket compared to overall government spending. And at this point, I think that a soft default, meaning one in which the U.S. never technically fails to pay its debt, but simply inflates the dollar to the point that paying the debt doesn't mean anything anymore. At this point, a soft default looks almost inevitable to me. So again, I'm probably being a little bit overly pessimistic here, but I don't think that I'm directionally wrong. And what that implies is that regardless of whether you're a liberal or a conservative, a Democrat or a Republican, an atheist or a believer, I would suggest that we need to temper and moderate our expectations for the next several years, and recognize that some of the benefits we have had for a long time as a country, namely being able to print money and from that printed money get stuff from the rest of the world, that time may be coming to an end. My intent with this content is not to cause despair, nor is my intent to cause people to turn away from faith. I mean, I am a believing person myself and pray on a daily basis. But escapism is a very tempting thing for most humans, and it expresses itself differently in those who look to the government to provide the escape, and those who look to God, not wrongly, but perhaps through a wrong mechanism, if we expect a quick and early rapture. And in either case, my hope is that in a world where escapism is tempting now and will be more tempting once challenges come, that being a little bit of an antidote to escapism will help to lessen the cognitive dissonance when some challenges come and prepare us to be more rational, more calm, more faithful, and better prepared when those times may come.